Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this. We saw your trailer for Chasing the Present, and it just really caught our eye and pulled our souls, I think, because it just speaks a lot to, certain issues we deal with day to day, and we're excited about seeing it, and we got excited about learning more about the process and also your journey.
Yeah, definitely hit home on a lot of points. So congratulations. I mean, it's definitely, I feel like to do something like this, it has to be a passion project, and your heart kind of shone through for sure.
Yeah, it was a big, I'll send you guys a link later so you can check it out for sure. But yeah, I mean, it started a long time ago, but in terms of the film in itself, it started about like 4 years ago. And personally in my life, I thought I was in a pretty good place. Like I had just, I moved to Bali almost 9 or 10 years ago, and I kind of became successful in business and was doing lots of cool projects, and was in a good relationship. And I just thought like, oh, life should be good right now. Everything is kind of perfect in the way that the world had always told me, and that I learned in the US that I needed to have in order to be happy, but I wasn't feeling it. I was still waking up in the middle of the night, having panic attacks, and having problems with my heart, and being just super stressed and not being able to sleep, and so much crazy stuff was happening. I didn't really get it, and I had been suffering with anxiety and panic attacks at that time since I was about 17, and I was about 32 when I started the filmmaking, when I started this filmmaking process. So I didn't get it. And I had a friend who was an amazing filmmaker, Mark Waters. He's the director and the main cinematographer in the film. And I said to him, like, hey, Mark, like, one day this feeling just took over me that I need to make a film. And I just had this feeling, and I called him. He was in Australia at the time. I was like, hey, man, I don't really know what it's about or anything. I just know that we have to make a film together. And he's like, what is it about? What are we going to do? I was like, I don't know, but we got to do it. Will you do it with me? And he's like, yeah, for sure. So he just like flew over and like started living with me. And we just started brainstorming like what to do. And I own like a bunch of vegetarian restaurants, and I opened a vegan hotel in Bali, and done a whole bunch of stuff in the health yoga centers, things in the health and wellness world. And I had always wanted to do things to help other people. That's always been part of my life mission. So that's what we started the idea of the film with. But really soon after, it didn't feel right, because I was struggling so much with anxiety and stuff in my life. It didn't feel right for me to go out and try to do something to help others if I was suffering so much. So we flipped the script completely, and we thought, like, why don't we just try to heal the things that are going on in ourselves and just share that openly and honestly, with the hopes that if we do it well, it may inspire other people to want to look into themselves as well. So that's the whole idea for the project in a nutshell, and kind of how it started.
Yeah, that's amazing. And did you have like a healing process before you started this documentary that you were already working on, or did you kind of embark on that when you first started working on the documentary?
No, I mean, I've been working on stuff for quite a long time. I'm not saying everybody should do what I did or something like that, but like
Right.
10 or 12 years ago, I became a vegetarian. And for me, I go back to that being the start of my process, because, there's a lot of different things people can do to kind of start being aware, and for me, when I started being aware of what I was eating, I started to be aware of a lot of other things. I started to research meditation. I started to do therapy with a therapist, and I started to do a lot of things, and I was actually on a good route. But I was like, dirt poor. I was literally in the streets of Amsterdam, because I was in Amsterdam before Bali, like walking around looking for €2, so I could just get some food at Burger King, like really like sleeping on couches and living and jumping from hostel to hostel, and doing that for a couple of years. And then things started to change through this vegetarian process, and reading and starting to inquire into myself, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. Where are you from originally? Because I know you live in Bali half of the year and Colorado the other half, but where did you grow up, and what's your backstory?
I was born in Connecticut, about like an hour and a half from New York City.
Okay.
And I grew up in Florida, though. I grew up in the west coast of Florida, and yeah, I went to school there. I was studying marketing in university. And like when I was about 21, 22, I had a cocaine overdose and I nearly died. And it was like the craziest night of my life by far. And I woke up with, from it with like a busted knee and just like totally just like, I was really bad from 15 until in my early 20s. I was just constantly high on everything. I was just really, 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 really not doing well. And that moment really had a huge impact on my life. And I kind of came out of that moment and just felt like things weren't working for me in the States and then I need to kind of run. So I sold my car. That was all the money that I had. It was a couple $1,000 and I just moved to Amsterdam by myself, which is probably not the best place to go after you're overdosing on cocaine.
Right.
But it was the only place I'd ever been before outside of the US. And I thought it was cool because it was so liberal and just was so different. So I decided to move there. And yeah, that's when everything kind of started for me.
Do you think that actually helped you get on to this like journey of healing, or how was that choice for you to go to Amsterdam? I mean, I feel like mentally you were prepared to make a shift, but do you feel that shift started there or just made it clear how much you had to do this?
I feel like for sure it started in Amsterdam. After like a year and a half in is when I met a girl and she was a vegetarian and she's like, hey, check this out. And I read a book. It was called Skinny Bastard. and I was like, okay, she gave it to me for Christmas or something. I'll read it, whatever. And then at the end of the book, it was like, try to be a vegetarian for 30 days. And then and I just did that. And I just like stuck with it for 10 years, So it was, my journey definitely started in a sense, like through Amsterdam for sure.
And I mean, mind-body connection, right? When you're eating clean foods, you start feeling differently, you start thinking differently, you start seeing the world differently. Dorit and I are both, in alignment with that lifestyle for sure. So I'm guessing you had some kind of connection with plants, right? And plant medicines and that being part of your journey as well. It's not necessarily the food you eat, but it's also what you're ingesting, and they're intelligent beings. And I know that was something that you touched on in this documentary. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I had kind of played around a lot with psychedelics and plant medicines and mushrooms and stuff like that, like for, I don't know, so, like since I was 15 or something. So I was kind of into that in a sense. But then I didn't do it for a while. And, like throughout the filmmaking process, we were just kind of doing all the things that we knew supposedly helped people. So I really wanted to dive into yoga. So we went to India and to Rishikesh, and we lived there for a while, like, a month, 2 months, and did yoga teacher training and all that kind of stuff. Then we went, but while we were at the yoga teacher training, everybody kept telling us, oh, you have to try ayahuasca. You have to try ayahuasca. And I knew what it was at the time, but I was so scared to do it because I was just Googling all these stuff and these videos and just like, oh man.
Oh, it's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. I really don't want to get into it. But then I was like, okay, I really want to heal this anxiety, and this seems like it worked for a lot of people. So we reached out to this incredible place. It's called the Temple of the Way of Light. And it's in Peru, deep in the Amazon jungle. And we reached out to the owner, and they don't normally let you film things there. So we had like 3 or 4 phone interviews, and then he invited us to come, but it still wasn't even sure that we were going to even be able to film when we got there. Because the vibe is so sensitive, there's people there that are trying to cure cancer and work on huge traumatic issues. So just like walking around with a camera is not a good vibe,
No,
so we had to be
we
had to be very sensitive and mindful of that. And then, we went for it. And it was this, I did 5 ceremonies while we were there. We lived in the jungle there for a little bit over a month. And I did 5 ayahuasca ceremonies, and 3.5 of those nights were the hardest nights of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with ayahuasca for about 8 years, and I remember the beginning was, whoa. I was like, who made me do this? Take it out of me. Like, make it stop. Like, my ego was just like, no, I don't want to go there. And I know, like, even with Dorit, it's something that she wants to try. And I'm like, don't let my objective count of this, deter you from it. It's hard and it's scary, but it can also be like the most beautiful and most powerful thing you can do, because you're just like opening Pandora's box and saying, all right, let's see what I have to work with here, versus just like leaving it in the shadows, But do you feel like you got long-term benefits from the ceremonies?
For sure. I mean, like I said, the first couple were super hard, and it wasn't until the fourth ceremony where I was, I drank a good amount, and it started to kick in, and I kind of like left the circle. In Peru we do it like in the dark, in an outside, in like a maloca, and you just like take it and just lay on your back and just experience it, and there's shamans there looking out for you and singing to you and all that. It's really beautiful. But on the fourth night, I had a really hard experience. I was really, really fighting the medicine as it was starting to work on me. And there was the ego thing, I was just fighting it. I wasn't accepting it. And it was really hard, really difficult, really a lot of fear came up. But a certain thing happened. I had this thought come up. It's like, whoa, wait a second. You're like fighting this. You came here, you put yourself in the jungle for all this time to take this medicine, and you're not letting it work. You're fighting it. So when I thought that, I went back in the maloca, I laid down, and I had that thought again, and something switched, and I just completely let go. I just completely let go and surrendered to the experience fully. And it totally changed from being this horrible, scary thing to the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced, where I remember feeling like I was dead, and I totally accepted it. I was just like, wow, if this is death, like, okay, like this is fine. I'm just here and I'm dead, and that's great because this is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had this beautiful experience for the rest of the night of just filled with love and all kinds of other crazy stuff that I won't get into. But it was just a really, really, really beautiful experience. But it was very hard for me to get to that point where the experience became something that was that I enjoyed.
That's amazing that you got to your ego death so soon and accepted it. That's not like typical, but it's really amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, it was tough, and I feel like if I do it again, I don't know, but I feel like I understand it in a sense, and I know every time you do it is different. But I haven't felt the call to go do it again yet, but I'm sure that I will at some point in my life. And I think it's a super, super important thing. One thing that we talk about in the film is it's not just, as you've been working with it for much longer than I have. But it's not something to just, let's go try ayahuasca on the weekend and have a good time type of thing, and a lot of people
Absolutely
in the West and
not.
the US and in Europe are making it into this cool, like trendy thing that everybody should try. But I really think in the place where I took it, they really make it a strong point that it's a medicine and it should be used as a medicine. And when you're really struggling with something and you've tried a lot of things and these things aren't working and you really want to make a change in your life, it could be something to try, but not to go into it lightly because it's not an easy experience.
And also not a magic pill. Like, it's just
exactly
the beginning of the work. Like, then the work comes afterwards. Yeah. So
for sure.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Were there certain tools or books or people that helped inspire you along your healing journey?
Yeah, lots. Let's see, I'll start with some books. I mean, I love Eckhart Tolle, I'm sure you guys know him.
Yeah.
Power of Now and A New Earth were just life-changing books. Met so many people along the way. It's endless. There's so many good authors and good things. But I think if I were to look at my anxiety and if I had to pick one thing as to what I feel has helped me the most, I would say it's hands down a meditation practice. Being able to being able to have separation from our thoughts and to realize that we're not our thoughts is something that's so important. And that gave me the space and the freedom to have this distance. I used to have panic attacks from really the age of 15 or 16 until 33, like on at least like a biweekly or monthly basis. And now, I haven't experienced that in a few years. So I really I've done so many things. It's hard to say like this one thing is the answer.
Right.
But when I look at something and think of something that anybody could do that doesn't need any money, that doesn't need to travel, is learn how to do meditation and learn how to have that connection with our breath and connection with our body and connection with the part of ourself that's connected to the deepest part of the universe, and through connecting with that and realizing that we're something more than we think we are is a really beautiful thing. And for me, it's the most powerful thing that I experience.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's kind of what pulled you towards Bali too, and away from city living like you were used to?
Yeah, for sure. I came here actually for the first time, like it was not far. It was like 6 months before I moved here.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to do a juice cleanse. So it was the first time in my life I did like a 10-day juice fast. That was why I came to Bali in the first place. I was at a talk from this like raw food guy called David Wolf. He was in Amsterdam like 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to his talk, and at the talk I bent over, there was like a flyer on the floor, and I was picking it up to see what it was and to put it back on the table. And I picked it up, and it was for a juice cleanse that was going to be happening in Bali. And I was like, oh, that's cool. We should go try that. So we came, and then when I was here, I just thought it was such a beautiful place, and the people were so amazing, and there were so many opportunities here that didn't exist, I felt like, from the places that I came from. So I decided to move here, and it was a really great decision for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I meet so many people who have that balance of Bali and somewhere else, or decide to move there permanently, and it just completely, I think, changes their day to day, because not only are you like surrounded by so many like-minded people, but you're also in this environment that, promotes well-being. I feel I've never visited there, so I don't know, but I feel from afar that's kind of what it's like there.
For sure.
For sure.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go. Have you been to Bali before?
I haven't been to Bali. So I'm born and raised in New York, and New York. It's high energy city, a lot going on, society, just like everything it's on you, right? Like you can't get away from it unless you're in your meditation, you're in your own you create your own like sacred space. And a few years ago, I had the calling too to be like, I need to be barefoot, like walking on dirt, and like I wake up to birds singing and, a butterfly on the flower. And I'm just like, yeah, this is fucking life, like this is what I want.
Yeah.
And, but I'm in Italy. And so there isn't that culture of wellness. Absolutely not. Like I walk around with a green juice in my cup, and people are like, oh, what are you drinking? And, it's a more of an educative process for me here, but also not necessarily the environment that fosters this kind of lifestyle. So I was like, all right, I wanted this balance between city and nature, but it's not in Italy. So definitely on that journey myself of, finding the community that aligns with this way of being and thinking and being more than anything. So yeah, I look forward to going though. I've wanted to go to Bali for a long time, for sure.
Yeah, it's a cool place. I mean, it has its own challenges like everywhere, but there definitely is a community, and that's definitely helpful for sure, without a doubt. But I think the most important thing is really, because I've been here having panic attacks too, like when I first moved here for the few years. So we can, like I found in my own life, I always try to think that there's something better that's going to be in the future, that's if I go to this place, if I had that job, if I had that partner, if I had that amount of money, if I did all these things that I didn't have right now, then I would be better. And I think that a lot of people, including myself, go that route. And it's a very dangerous route to go to, because you never get to that place, because you tend to always put the benchmark further and always put the benchmark higher. When you get there, you realize like, oh, wait, Yeah, it's never enough, because happiness doesn't come from external things, you know.
Right.
Of course, it's much better to be connected to nature, hands down, than to be in a city. Like, you know, without a doubt, it's definitely more beneficial, and it helps us connect to our true nature more. But I've definitely had a lot of struggles here as well, and realized that the battle's within myself, you know.
Yeah. Do you have a self-care and maintenance routine that you practice day to day to kind of help with those anxieties that you have day to day?
Yeah, I do. I do a daily meditation practice, um, and I do a daily meditation practice, and I carry it throughout the day. You know, I'm not like walking around like meditating or, you know, that kind of thing. But what I take from my meditation practice is that that distance from our thoughts. You know, so if I'm getting in an argument with my partner, or something's coming up, and all this kind of stuff, I use the tools that I've learned through meditation, and I'm building that awareness to not just react immediately, you know, to not just jump into the thoughts. So I don't just do it when I'm meditating, but I try my best, and I fuck up a lot, but I try my best to take the
Yeah.
things that I learn in the meditation practice on throughout the day, you know.
Yeah. Accepting that you're
And also
human.
Totally.
accepting that I'm human, that I make mistakes, and I love being in nature. I love hiking. Anything that I can do that gets me outdoors, I really like to do it. I think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, being in nature and connecting with nature is such an amazing thing to do, for sure.
So what was getting more into, you know, creating this film? What was the process like? Like, you touched on it a little bit about how you called Mark and were like, let's start filming. But from there, what was the process, like the creative process?
We really just, he's one of my best friends. So it wasn't a lot at the beginning specifically. We just did stuff and filmed it, you know. We just went to a yoga teacher training and let things happen spontaneously and filmed what came up. And then when we met interesting people, we kind of sat with them and interviewed them. And then we did that for a while. And then we got to New York and we realized, like, well, maybe we needed a little bit more structure, because we just have like hundreds of hours of stuff and we don't really, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we started reaching out to experts, people that we really admire and wanted to talk to, you know, like we reached out to Russell Brand and got to spend the afternoon with him and talk to him about all these topics, and Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and Graham Hancock and Alex Gray and a lot of, you know, Gary Weber and all this kind of stuff. Just amazing people that we got to speak to and talk to about the film. My therapist, you know, I have like a full-blown therapy session on camera, one of the deepest ones that I've had in my life, and I just did it, and we filmed it. So we realized, like, we knew that anxiety was the problem, and with me, and we just kind of built everything around that, you know, in a sense, and just found people who we thought were the most inspiring and talked to them and linked it in, and just tried to get advice, really, like me on my journey, really trying to find the answers and speaking to all the people who we respected in that field, that we could, you know. A lot of people obviously we reached out to that never responded to us or whatever, but you know, we did our best, and we learned a lot.
What did you learn, like, about yourself, about life, about everything? Like, what were some of the big teachings that you got in this process?
I think the most important thing, which I maybe knew at different times of my life, but that I really like hold and really know, like in my heart, as opposed to just like understanding something, was really that I'm more than this. You know, I'm more than just what I look at in the mirror when I see myself. You know, I'm more than what I do for work and who my friends are and how much money I have and where I go on trips. I'm more than that. And realizing that for me was the most important thing possible, you know, like truly understanding what I actually am, and learning more and more in my life how to identify with that aspect of myself, as opposed to this kind of fake self that changes all the time, that we make up to be however we want it to be, you know. And once I was able to uh, understand that fully, and just, and I'm in that too, for sure. Like I fall into that and forget and all that kind of stuff, but just kind of constantly remembering that we're more than this, you know, that we're something that's so incredible and infinite and beautiful and loving. And yeah, I mean, for me, that changed my life.
Yeah,
It's
I can
amazing.
imagine.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned before a little bit of the kinds of people that you chose to interview. Was there any process around who you chose, and were there any interviews that really stood out as helping you in particular?
Let's see. I mean, it was people who inspired us. We reached out to a lot of people. A lot of people didn't respond to us at all, and a lot of people did respond. So that was a huge part of it. Who responded, and all, but definitely, you know, all the people we talked to were like people that we really wanted to speak to.
Yeah.
It's not like we only talked to them because they responded. There's so many also other people that we actually interviewed and spoke with that aren't in the film, just because the film isn't long enough.
Right.
So we're actually putting out a summit with Hay House. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hay House.
Oh yeah.
So in the middle of July, we have a full summit that we did that is going to have like all the full length interviews from the film, plus like way more. And we went and interviewed Ed Sheeran and Koya Webb and Trevor Hall and Rachel Hunter and a lot of extra people as well for the summit.
Yeah.
So that's coming out in the middle of July. We're really excited about that. But yeah, the process was really intuitive and just feeling who inspires us, who do we want to speak to, who was I admiring, you know. But the one that stands out, they were all amazing. Prem Baba was incredible. We didn't even speak the same language. He speaks Portuguese.
Oh wow.
But we went to India and studied with him for quite a while, and I got to spend some really close, like one-on-one time with him. And he was just such an incredible being, you know, just so from the heart. It was just so beautiful to be around him and to share. And Gary Weber, he's the older gentleman who has the white hair. We're sitting across from each other at the table, and he just blew my mind. You know, he was a Harvard professor at one point, and he did this incredible experiment. They had like 100 monks, and they put them in the fMRI machine at Yale University with him. So they each went in, and he was the only one. And all of these people had years and years and years and years of meditation experience, and they could prove that these two parts of the brain with him were just always off, so to speak. They weren't off, but they weren't connected.
Right.
Yeah, you know, the default mode network and all that kind of stuff. So he was amazing, and I didn't even know the guys on the team found him, and they're like, okay, you're going to speak to this guy. He's awesome. His name is Gary Weber, but we're not going to tell you anything. Don't read any of his books. Don't you know, don't watch his TED Talk. Don't do anything. Just, you're going to go talk to him. It's like, okay. So we went to this place in New York, and we sat down, and we just sat across the table from each other and had an insanely amazing, life-changing 3-hour conversation. Wow. You know, and about 10 minutes of it's in the film, I guess, but we went super deep on a lot of things, and it really changed my life. He's an incredible guy. And then lastly, I'll say, like, in terms of the interview question, my dad was a huge one. I had a one-on-one conversation with my dad, and at the time before that, I didn't tell him he didn't even know I had anxiety like my whole life. So the first time I actually told my dad that I had anxiety was in the film, you know, like in a diner in New York across the table from each other. So that conversation was also super beautiful and super important for me.
Yeah, and something that you get to take with you too, because you have it forever, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
It also just opens the door to new connection with, I mean, so many of our heaviness and wounds that we carry around come from those first relationships, right? And we don't even know it sometimes. And so to be able to share something like that later on in your life, I feel like is just a really heart-opening, hopefully, not always, depending on how they receive it. But do you feel like that started like a different relationship between the two of you?
For sure. Definitely. It wasn't that long ago, and we live in different parts of the world, so it's still unfolding, you know. But it definitely, I think any time where we're truly open with people that are really close to us that we might not be so open with normally, you know, it's really changing, and we're really growing from that. And I see a huge growth in myself, and I see definitely a kind of a deeper, more respected connection between me and my dad, for sure.
That's amazing. And were there...
Happy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you know, I'm not saying we're like perfect now and like running through the field with like butterflies, like holding hands, like,
And it
oh,
may
you know.
never be that, but even just being able to talk openly, you know, with a parent that you didn't have that dialogue with, you know, previously is just, it's almost like a weight off of your chest. Like you can breathe a little bit lighter, you know,
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah, and you can be seen a little bit more too, which is, you know,
Yeah, that's what we're
not
looking
always
for.
the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
And would you say that there were what were the most valuable lessons you took away from this entire experience of creating this documentary and digging deeper into who you are?
Well, I think I said before, you know, like that idea that we're not what we think we are, in terms of we're not just this physical body and what we have and our possessions and our friends and all that kind of stuff. So that's the most important thing. And then just the awareness practices that I do, and the ability to tap into that place at any time, you know, when I feel panic coming or when I feel anxiety coming. I mean, about 4 years ago, I couldn't even drive on the highway. Like it got so
Oh,
bad.
really?
I had like a super bad car incident happen, you know, while I was on the highway, and it like triggered something in me, and I couldn't drive on the highway like for a year. And I was just like, oh man, I love driving. I love doing road trips across the country. And I was like, I liked it, you know, it was like something that I enjoyed. And then I was getting on the highway, and I literally couldn't make it like 2 exits without having a full blown panic attack. And then, you know, after this whole process, I was like, okay, I wanted to go to, I've always wanted to go to Yellowstone. So we drove from Colorado to Yellowstone, and it's like a 8 hour drive from where I live, 9 hour
Nice.
drive. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I got in the car, and, you know, I was driving, and I could slowly feel the anxiety building. It was taking a lot longer than normal, but then it like fully came, you know, like I was just fully there, and I was about to go into a panic attack. And then I just remembered, like, I'm not, you know, I'm not my body. I'm not my thoughts, you know, when the thoughts were coming, like, oh my God, what's happening? My heart's beating in a weird way. What's going to happen? I'm driving. Am I going to die? Like all these thoughts, you know, just going like crazy. But then that moment of awareness, to be able to have a separation from those thoughts, like in that moment, I realized like I'm not the thoughts, because I'm watching the thoughts. And if I'm watching the thoughts, then what am I? And just constantly connecting with that space, constantly remembering that truth really, really, really helped me overcome this anxiety. And I drive all the time, no problem. It doesn't come up anymore. Sometimes if I feel a little bit of tingly, a little bit of anxiety coming, I just know what it is. I watch it. It kind of goes away, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So those things for me, like just literally completely changed my life on so many levels.
Yeah.
Do you feel like actually doing this film contributed to all of these shifts for you? Like, was the making of this a big part of that like journey for you?
The biggest part. I mean, the people that I talked to doing the yoga trainings, going to study meditation, doing the ayahuasca, um, speaking to so many inspiring people, taking the time out to be able to make a film. I mean, I know it's a super luxury thing. Like not many people can take 3 or 4 years off of life and go make a film. And I'm super grateful for that opportunity. And the fact that I can do that, I don't take it for granted in any way at all. I'm very, very, very grateful for that. But I think, yeah, for sure, it changed my life, this film. And yeah, in every way.
I mean, I know that just by watching the clip, it was like there's something clicked for us, you
Yeah.
know, but aside from, you know, really, I mean, I feel like there are going to be so many takeaways when you just open and you're authentic with your story and vulnerable and take all the walls down. Like, how can people not feel something and take something away from it? And I'm sure different people will take different things from the story, but what's your hope? Like that the feeling that they'll leave with, what will stick and kind of the ripple effects of it. What's your prayer with this project?
You know, I think for me, the most important thing is, you know, it's so important to talk about these things, you know, and like this project also inspired me to go back, because I kind of quit school when I was younger and blah, blah, blah. So I went back and studied psychology and got a degree in psychology while I've been doing the film, you know, as well. So it got me super interested into this and wanting to do counseling and maybe be a therapist someday and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really like continuing that as well. But I think being open and talking to people about what's going on in your life is so important. You know, I think so many people are so afraid to share. Myself, I mean, I didn't tell my dad that I had anxiety until I was like 34 years old. So that the ability to kind of speak and to share and to be open and to let people know what's going on so that we can connect with other people, so that we can be heard, and so that we can share and be nurtured in the ways that we need to be nurtured is such an important thing. You know, so I hope that by me doing that, in a sense, that other people may be like, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it, you know, because it's totally true.
Open dialogue and diving into the depths of all of it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And have you seen other parts of your life change after this? Like personal relationships, friendships, like has it affected, you know, any other outer parts of your life that we haven't really spoken about? You know, other, like your father and.
Yeah. No, I think it's affected every part of my life, really. All my friendships, all my relationships, what I'm, you know, what kind of projects I'm doing now, work-wise, what I'm doing with my life, you know, how I communicate with my family. It's just, it's kind of just a, you know, it's like once you learn, you know, like once you have a new way of being, a new way of understanding life, you know, you see the world through a different kind of pair of glasses, and it goes throughout everything. You know, it's not just, you know, in one aspect of my life or just while I'm filming or just while I'm doing this, but it's definitely changed the way that I perceive everything. And again, like so many times I fuck up and so many times I, you know, get into arguments and say stupid things, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just said that, you know. It still happens, but I see at least a slow gradual progression into it happening less and having more space between the time where something happens and the time that I react, and that has a big impact on all aspects of my life. And the one other thing I wanted to say, just because you asked me like if there was a key moment where I think things started to change for me, and it definitely had to do with the vegetarian thing. That was like maybe a first point for me. But soon after that, I was like learning about meditation. I was like in the closet. I don't know why, but it was just this room. It was like my girlfriend, she had like a big closet. So I went in there and I like put up a little dream board on the wall, and I would like meditate in front of my dream board. And one time I was meditating and I closed my eyes and I just felt like really, I felt gratitude for the first time on like the deepest level for me. And I think a lot of times we hear like, yeah, be grateful and blah, blah, and all this kind of like things, but like this was something different, you know. It took over like every part of my body, this feeling of gratitude. And it completely, I feel like that moment is like probably like one of the, if not the most important moment of my life. I felt like an explosion happened in me, like when I really truly felt grateful. And I think it's such an important thing, because I didn't have anything at that point in my life. You know, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any money. In terms of what the world thinks we should have, you know, I didn't even have like a job. I was just like living with my girlfriend and, you know, doing whatever. But I started this path and I felt grateful for what I had in that moment. And something happened there that I can't explain.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because I feel like when we find ourselves in the darkest moments, you know, that's when all of this work, it's like it's game time. Like all of these pieces of work that we do on ourselves and all of these tools that we learn, those are the moments that we need to really kind of apply them. And, you know, I feel like just human nature, it's easy to be like, well, I have nothing and everything's going to shit, and, you know, I'll be grateful when, like you spoke about this. But to be able to find that really deep sense of gratitude in nothingness is, I feel like, really the key, right? Of just separation between the external world and just being like grateful for right now. Like, I'm here, I'm breathing, I have my health or not, whatever it may be. But yeah, thanks for sharing that like little last piece. I feel like it's an important part of all of it, you know, especially beginning this journey.
Yeah.
It's just like the one thing that brings you back, you know, like when you're in a dark moment, to just be like, okay, I can find something to be grateful for in this moment. I have to, like, and there's so much to be grateful for, but let me just start with one. You know.
For sure.
So
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like that's sometimes why life blesses you with nothing, right? It's kind of to teach you that there's so much more out there than you ever imagined, and it's just looking inwardly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So these interviews with Hay House, how can we hear them? Where are they going to be? Like, what other projects do you have coming up, and how can we like tune in and stay updated?
Yeah, with the Hay House stuff, it's going to be like in a week or two on their website, on the front page of their website, and then I think it's like the 13th or the 15th of July when it starts properly. So you can just tune in on their website to get more updates on that. On our website, chasingthepresent.com, we have we're doing some virtual screenings since we got hit with the virus and the movie theaters pretty much got closed everywhere. So we were just about to be in theaters and stuff, and then we couldn't because of what happened. So we figured out how to do virtual screenings. So we do virtual online screenings with Q&As afterwards, similar to this, where we have, like next week we're doing one with the Psychedelic Society of London, and there's like 300 people signed up, and it's cool. People ask questions, and we get to talk to them afterwards, and all that kind of stuff. So we do those, and then in September the film will be out on iTunes and Amazon and all those places.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you too. I really appreciate it a lot. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And let me know, if you need anything or if I can help in any way. I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to speak to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Us, for an hour, and like
awesome.
sending us your vibes,
yeah,
for
sure.
hours.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys are good and stay safe, and
Thanks,
that everything gets better in LA and Italy soon, and let's talk again soon.
Yeah, sounds
Have
great.
a good one.
You too.
Thanks
Bye.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.